On the topic of like real world verification, right? So as the end consumer, how do I know that this device and this DePIN network did the job that it said it would? Or how do I know that certain minimum levels of service have been provided by a device? Like, how do I know what's going on in the real world? Basically, like that's a topic, real world verification that I hear all over this conference, all over here today. Like, no one really knows exactly how to solve it. It's very difficult. If DePIN wants to go mainstream, I think we do need to solve it though.
I think on the tech side, we definitely have the tools to address all the problems. But if you're thinking about like a real world adoption of the technology, this will take some time. So that's why like IoTeX internally, so we're thinking about, how do we do like define labels and scope, for this verification problem. I still feel like this problem has been there without like a sufficient definition, right? So we're working on that.
Raullen, welcome to the Proof of Coverage podcast in person here. The big news recently is that IoTeX had the 2.0 launch. So that's a completely new, white paper, some revamped tokenomics. I would say like a redesigned vision for how IoTeX fits into the DePIN space. So I want to ask you specifically, like, what parts of IoTeX 2.0 are you most excited about to bring to market? And like, what does the DePIN space need right now?
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, actually. So we have been like in the DePIN industry for so long. So that's why we know a lot of pain points from the builders, right? So one being like the tech complexity of being a DePIN project is very high. You have to work on the hardware, all the middleware, all the way to the chain, D apps, mobile apps, so on and so forth. That requires a team to have a big set of like a skill sets. That usually means either you have a big team or like you have a very strong capability to raise a big capital, which is not true for most of teams, right? So that's why like a DePIN, of course, we have great DePIN projects on the market, but not enough. In my mind, we should have like 100x more DePIN projects on the market, really try out to see which one works, which one doesn't work. So the big part of 2.0 that makes me very exciting is we kind of like draw out the blueprint about how can we modularize this very complicated tech infrastructure into different pieces. That makes like a different projects so they can work on the things they really like. For example, storage, indexing, verification, device abstraction, identity, so on and so forth. That makes like more people, more builders can be involved into the space. So let's just co-building like entire DePIN as an industry.
For sure. Yeah. Democratizing DePIN, exactly. As I've heard you say before. On the topic of like real world verification, right? So as the end consumer, how do I know that this device and this DePIN network did the job that, it said it would? Or how do I know that certain minimum levels of service have been provided by a device? Like, how do I know what's going on in the real world? Basically, like that's a topic, real world verification that I hear all over this conference, all over here today. Like, no one really knows exactly how to solve it. It's very difficult. If DePIN wants to go mainstream, I think we do need to solve it though. And so what would you say IoTex's approach to real world verification is?
Yeah, I think technically, so we can address this problem. It just needs a lot of effort and a lot of time to address this thing, right? So ideally, we should have like a device on the edge. So this could be in the car to basically having like a data integrity, which usually means this device should have some sort of secret chips or TEE inside to sign the data at least, right? Then when the data come into the middleware, so we have to find a way to compute on the top of data with integrity, right? So with privacy preserving capabilities, then eventually those data becomes useful for someone. So along the way, from the device to the middleware to the chain, so we have to make sure no one tampers the data. Everybody's, fine with the privacy, so on and so forth. I think on the tech side, we definitely have the tools to address all the problems. But if you're thinking about like a real world adoption of the technology, this will take some time. So that's why like IoTeX internally, so we're thinking about, how do we do like define labels and scope, for this verification problem. I still feel like this problem has been there without like a sufficient definition, right? So we're working on that. Once we define this one, so we know the answer.
I was about to say you have to define the problem before you can solve it, right? Okay. No, that makes sense. Speaking of IoTeX as a company, right? It's been around since 2018, 2019, kind of almost like 3 cycles ago now.
Yeah.
So I would say it's very rare for crypto startups to last that long, to have that kind of longevity. How have you, as the CEO and one of the founders, been able to steer IoTeX to success through multiple crypto market cycles?
Yeah, that's a really like a rare on the market, right? So I think number one is because we have a very strong team. Like this team is very long term, right? So they're not like hungry for the short term financial gains. So they want to definitely like be dedicated for 5 year, 10 year to lift the entire IoT blockchain or DePIN, let's call it DePIN right now, industry. I feel like the team is number one. So definitely like we're expanding team. We're definitely like letting people who have the same passion and a skill to be part of the team down the road. So number two is we got support from all the long-term vision, the VCs as well. For example, EV3 has been really helpful, and Borderless, Hashkey. There's so many of them actually. I cannot list them actually in this conversation, but they have been like a long-term, also like a builders behind us, supporting us, down the way. Then I think number three is definitely like the industry is evolving, and we are also like evolving as well, right? So we're never stagnated to just one positioning or one way to work it out. So we're adapting ourselves to the new trend to see how the world can be a better place.
100%. Yeah, it makes sense. That's all I've got for you, but thank you very much for joining me here.
All right, thanks for having me.
For sure.
Thanks for listening to the Proof of Coverage podcast. We post new episodes Mondays and Wednesdays, interviewing the best DePIN and crypto founders out there. If you like this episode, follow us on Twitter @CoverageProved and all other platforms, including YouTube and Spotify, at Proof of Coverage Podcast. Thank you.